Historic District Commission. Here we go. Larry?
Hi, I'd like to say a few words on behalf of the Historic District Commission.
You never say a few words. Just don't even ever say that, because it's never a few.
We asked to be put on the agenda tonight, the Historic District Commission, for the reason that there are concerns that are being voiced among the historic community in town, the Historical Society, people on the Historic District Commission, other people who are very interested in the preservation of our historic houses and assets in town. Concerns with regard to what's going on with, as to the Munger house. It does have a long history of our efforts to try to get her in compliance. First thing I'd like to do is I'd like to thank the Board of Selectmen and the town for its efforts up to this point in trying to develop a solution with Karla Munger to avoid the demolition of the house. I thank the town, I applaud the town with regard to those efforts to date, and we're here essentially tonight to request the town that we continue in those efforts and perhaps pursue other avenues to ensure that this house of historical significance in the town is not demolished. I would say, first of all, I would like to just put out there for informational purposes, and as I'm sure our selectmen know, the Historic District Commission just recently had concluded for the town a historic survey of the High Street area and surrounding streets. And the architectural historians in charge of pursuing that survey came to the conclusion at the end of that survey that we do have a lot of historical houses in the High Street area, that it would warrant and justify consideration of the creation of either a village district or a historic district to preserve those houses and historic structures in that area, and that one of the key houses with significant history in the town is the Karla Munger house. And in fact, Megan Stine, one of the members, the vice chair of our commission, maybe you could say a few words about what the noted history of that house is, and then I'd like to talk just for a moment about potential solutions.
Okay, so the house was identified by the architectural historians as one of the most significant in that area. As they point out, and I'm reading from their report, it was built around 1759. It has,
Hot tub.
Pardon me?
Nice hot tub.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Look
news to
through
me.
the back porch windows.
The home was likely built later than noted, it says, and was possibly altered a little bit in the 18th and 19th century, but the house on the present site was on maps in 1859, and it was occupied at that time by John B. Wright, who served for many years as the Connecticut collector for the Internal Revenue Service. He was appointed by Lincoln to that post, and he also served as a state representative, and in 1861 and 62 as a state senator. And this report says the house at 22 High Street is significant as an example of Clinton stock of 18th century houses, and as such contributes to the survey area's character. And it also says on this particular, it says this house is especially significant because it sits at the beginning of High Street, as you know, and is the first of many historic homes which line the street, and it sets the tone for the area for anyone who travels here. So they saw it as an anchor property for a historic district. And this is the picture from the survey, which was just taken a year ago, and you can see from the photograph that, you know, if you're not looking at the up close at the blight aspects, it also has a great deal of charm and beauty, so I wanted to bring your attention.
And as everyone knows, all of the houses surrounding that area are very significant as far as their historic nature and architectural detail. So this is just one of many in that area, which would warrant us to look at that whole area as preserving all of the historical structures in the area, especially since it is a gateway to our community coming into town. Alan, another member of our commission, I'd like him to say a few words. Do you have some additional words with regard to the history of the
very
house?
briefly. So I actually did a title search on the house, and I kind of ran into a dead end in the early 1800s or so it's not complete yet. But I found two things. First of all, there was an Adam Stanton connection with the house. He was the owner at some point. I think he actually flipped the property in pretty short order. It was interesting. It also was owned by Buell. That's the furthest back I got. So I actually believe it was one of the original 13 lots, that the house was built on one of the original 13 lots in our town, which is very significant.
Over the last 6 months, the Historic District Commission has made efforts, and actually going back at least a year to 2 years, to speak with Karla Munger concerning trying to improve the house and also to save the house and preserve it. And we have not been successful to date in that, and I understand the town's frustrations with regard to its own efforts to deal and work with her to avoid any adverse action taken against the house. What we came up with over a period of months trying to talk about possible solutions to bring to the Board of Selectmen is essentially this. At this stage, she's in violation of ordinance in the town. That would put her in violation of the terms of her own mortgage. And what we would like to inquire tonight, and
That's a court order.
well, that's correct, but what the key here is,
More significant than the ordinance.
how do we attempt to resolve the issues with regard to blight and with regard to the house issues in order to preserve it as opposed to allow it to be demolished? And what we feel is what would be an appropriate action to take, given the town's indicated past and proven history of working with the Historic Society and in trying to preserve its buildings, such as what was done with the Academy building across the street. We feel that this might be a solution. Number one, if it is in violation of its mortgage terms, which it would be by virtue of simply the blight would be causing certain violations of the mortgage. If the bank could be approached and requested to have a sit-down with the town, which the HDC would like to be a part of with the Board of Selectmen, and advise the bank of the problems that put at issue their own equity interests, and they certainly want to protect that, such that the bank would be probably left with two options. One, either perform the necessary repairs and improvements to bring the house back into compliance, or in the alternative, foreclose and thereby require the sale of the property, where we could possibly get a new owner who would be interested in the proper preservation and restoration of the house. Now, the bank would have that power by virtue of its mortgage to do that. Of course, the alternative is if our blight ordinance has a lien section to it, because the state enabling statute allows towns to, if they do certain things on property, they can then put a lien on that
We already
property.
have that.
Okay, if you have a lien, then you also could foreclose.
We have a blight ordinance that includes a
Well,
lien,
the
but
court
we
order.
don't actually have a lien at this point.
Yes, we do. The court order directed us to, if she did not comply, and actually the court order directed that if she did not comply by January 30th of 2013, the town was supposed to take action to enforce. And as of what we did a couple of weeks ago, we have a $9,000 lien on the property.
Okay, to the extent we have a lien,
And we are in contact with the lender.
okay, good, and that's the other thing. We could actually foreclose and force the same situation where we could then have the property sold to an interested owner who would be willing to preserve it and restore it. So with those two options, either moving the bank to do it or the town doing it, these are two options that we raise and are open to other suggestions, of course, because our main interest, of course, is to preserve this very important historic structure and house, which stands in the very middle of a historic area, which has been recommended by the architectural historians to be a historic
Is
district.
she paying taxes on her taxes?
She pays the taxes, so you can't foreclose
Well, I
it.
want to just jump in.
Okay. I'm done, by the
I
way.
don't think the board disagrees that we want to preserve the house. But I did meet with Megan, Alan, and we met in February, all right, and I told them what we were up against. And we've been working slowly, trying to initiate some activity from the private sector to come in and try to do something to take care of that house, take care of the property. We're in a position now as a town to be considered in contempt of court because we have not followed the order. So that's why we went in 2 weeks ago and cleaned the property, okay? The next step, and there will be a next step, slowly, but we will be doing environmental testing on the property. Because if in fact it gets to the point, two ways, it's either gonna be sold, somebody's gonna buy, or we're gonna have to knock the house down. we have to do environmental testing to find out what is there that has to be remediated, mitigated in order to do. And if somebody wants to buy the property, they're gonna wanna know what is there as well.
Exactly.
Okay, so we're taking baby steps, I just wanna let you know. But I don't know about the rest of the board, I don't think the town is in a position to take ownership and fix the house, because the cost benefit, as far as dollars and cents, and we always, Kirk sitting there, CTA, and every other dollars and cents, it's not worth the dollars you're investing in it, the cost benefit is not there.
Do you have anybody, Larry, that's interested?
No, but this is
And
the point.
unfortunately,
The
people
point
have
is,
been interested, and she's not willing
and that's the whole
to
point.
talk.
The whole point is, in order to have a viable solution, i.e. sale to an interested owner who could preserve and protect the property, is she is the obstruction. She is the problem. We don't want to advocate evicting anyone from their house.
They're not living there, obviously.
But what I'm saying is this, the house, which is an important, significant historic structure to our town and to the area, it's gonna be gone if we don't take action. So at this stage, it would appear that the best solution, either through motivating the bank to do it or foreclosing on our own lien, is to press for the sale of the property so that once we can get it to that point, then we can match it up with interested buyers to come in and take it over and preserve it.
Larry, you have thought about the fact that an interested owner may not be somebody interested in preserving and protecting the property, correct?
You can't control that.
You can't control, I don't believe, I know that there's been a study, but I'm not sure that you can force an interested buyer.
You can't force somebody to preserve the house.
preserve
If they
the
want
house.
If the bank decides to sell it to somebody, you
Or it
can't
goes to
force them.
auction.
Or it goes to auction, you can't force them to preserve the house.
And that might be a reason, a compelling reason to first deal with the bank and to have them come down for a sit down. And perhaps what we could do is maybe the bank at the very least would agree to put a conservation easement on the house. And that would be at no cost to the town, because once a conservation easement is placed on the house, it's up to the state to oversee the upkeep and preservation of the house. And so, I mean, we do have
Well,
options.
again, and you said this is the key word, is up to the state. Is the state gonna be willing to do that? 'Cause
Well,
gonna cost the
that's
state
what
money.
we would like to put some of our time and energy into in helping to explore with the board, because this is such a significant asset, to attempt to save if we can.
Well, I'm trying to initiate a discussion.
Understood.
And that's why we waited so long. I mean, we gave her a dumpster, and what did she do with the dumpster?
Right, I
Fill it up
understand.
with junk from the other two houses
But
instead of
does
cleaning
this-
out the house.
Would this property dovetail at all with the Vibrant Communities Grant study?
Exactly, it's in that,
Okay.
the Bermuda Triangle, as I
It
call it.
is, right now, we're looking to receive somewhere in the area of 10 to 15,000 of that $50,000 grant to retain an architectural historian or someone of like qualifications. What they're gonna do is they're gonna look at that whole High Street area and the surrounding streets and come up with a determination and plan as to how to best preserve, most likely through the establishment of a village district
So they can use a study
zone.
that's already been done, maybe in.
Yes,
other-
the next.
They will take some of that and they can create a village district zone, which we wanna then use the HDC for two reasons. One, there will actually create the regulations for us, do all the footwork, so that we can actually have P&Z and design review take that and pass it. So we can actually have a working village district zone with regulations
Still need to have
established.
somebody who purchases or ultimately a bank who might take possession or whatever, who's interested in making sure that there is.
We are in
conservation.
contact with the mortgage holder.
Could we have a sit down with them to see how, I mean, you would think they may have some PR funds where they might be willing to work
And
something
it's a
with.
big bank, it's not Liberty
Who's the
Bank.
bank?
I'll tell you right now.
Is it a local bank?
No.
No,
Get into
okay,
that.
okay.
Yeah.
All right,
Can I just
Now,
add too, I'm on the board of the Connecticut Trust for Historic Preservation, and we sponsor the Vibrant Community Grants, and I'm not really involved with them, but I was at a presentation, and they are so excited over Clinton, and this particular grant, I mean, this is a pilot program, and this is a real priority, and they have had conversations with Karla in the past, and they're really anxious to help us. So it's another source.
Help us.
So not only do you have the local historic community
The whole thing,
interested,
yeah.
but the state as well.
Yeah.
And again, let me stress that we're on the verge at this stage, the HDC. We've been racing ahead to get all of these different surveys done, the Main Street area, Commerce Drive, Waterside Lane, all of the areas with the heavy concentration of historic houses for one reason. When we get to the point where we are resolving our water treatment control issues, we're gonna have more development. And when we have more development, we're gonna have to have set in place protection for all of these historic houses, which everybody just assumes right now are always gonna be here, but won't, unless we put in village district zones or historic districts that will protect these historic assets of the town. So I'm not saying that we're anti-development. We want to invite development and increase our tax base, but invite the type of development that we as a town want. And then as a consequence, we need to move forward with these historic protections. Now, having said that, what better way, as an example, than to preserve one of the key houses in our historic area? It would be a terrible example to set for the town to flatten that. How do we, as an HDC, try to create village districts and historic district areas when the town itself is showing by example? Let's flatten these old houses.
Well, I guess one concern that I have, and I think it's an important concern, because certainly you want to preserve Clinton's heritage and history when you can. But for a court to order a demolition is an extreme remedy for zoning enforcement, anti-blight enforcement. That is rare and almost unheard of, which suggests to me, not knowing, I haven't walked in the property, I'm not privy to what the pleadings were, what the court was
It was a
presenting.
default judgment, straight through.
Well,
No attorney appeared for her, and she filed her special defenses after the judgment entered. So
Right.
there was absolutely no representation. It all went through in default.
No, I understand that, but they wouldn't order it demolished is the problem. And I guess my concern might be that we're trying to preserve something that is not capable of being preserved. So I guess that's a concern, and if that's.
Anything can be
status-
preserved, it's just how much money you wanna throw
Can
at
I
it.
speak to just a few issues, if you don't mind?
Mhm.
Just a few. We do know that Dave Townsend, who has expertise in old houses, has gone in and looked at it and reported that it is sound and perfectly able to be preserved. And he took pictures of the interior, and has a lot of its original architectural features intact. So, and I will just say, I restored a house that was in similar disrepair, and so anything can be preserved, as Lily said. But also, the other thing is, I think that what we're hoping is that if we pursue some of the areas that Larry has suggested, that we do that within the context of a kind of a consensus or agreement that we're trying to preserve the house. And in order to do that, I think we would need to put some sort of historic preservation easement on the house. And we think that there are ways to accomplish that, but we would like to know that we're sort of all on the same page in terms of preservation.
Megan, I don't wanna take the house down,
Okay.
and that's why it's taking so long. In theory,
Right.
January 31st, February 1st, we could have gone in and just, boom, done, over.
And we're here to thank the town for that.
And you know what? And I was hoping somebody from the private sector would step forward and say, hey, here we go. We've actually had people, one individual particularly, that wanted to buy all three of the properties with the intent of preserving the house, restoring the house. Karla wouldn't call her. I talked to her. I gave her the information. She would not reach out.
And that's why I think the solution at this stage, because we've been banging our head
She was
against
gonna
the
give me a
wall,
kiss last week, 2 weeks ago, when we were up there.
trying to come up with a
She
solution.
said, if I didn't have conjunctivitis, I'd give you a kiss. Thank you so much.
That's why I think,
Really?
I think unfortunately, the
You
solution
should see the
here
cops running away. They were like,
would be a foreclosure situation where we get someone who's gonna own the property that is going to have a commitment
Right.
to preserve and protect. So with that being said, we would welcome the opportunity to work with the board to perhaps have a sit-down with the bank initially and see what we can get the bank to do.
I'll see if the bank's interested. I mean, we've been dealing with the bank, particularly through Tom Lane, because the order is through his office, his zoning.
But again, I guess we gotta find out, number one, is it a health or safety hazard to remain erect? I mean, that would be my only
I
concern.
understand, no.
Because if it's not, well then sure, do what you can to delay it, you know. but-
And Ray, in response to that inquiry, we did have a circuit rider from the state come down. I walked with him the perimeter of the property. This was about 8 months ago, and he had indicated what was needed to wrap the house up exteriorly in order to not have the safety and the health hazard, and I think most of those things have been addressed. There's a few small items that need to be done in that regard.
And they're working on houses like this all over the state.
No, I know.
So it's, you know, they look awful, but they.
But the big difference is,
They
those
don't have a
houses,
Carla.
and they never got to the point where they ended up in a court.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? They were able to get somebody that was willing to come in and buy it, this and that. I know that people have offered.
And we really see this from the start as a people problem, or rather I should say a person problem, but I think there's a lot of people in this room and in this town that could come together and think it through, come up with a solution. It's not the problem of the house, it's with the owner.
We understand that, and that's why we've been going slow.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, and I heard,
Appreciate that.
I heard rumblings that we cut too many trees down, but, you know, unless you're a licensed arborist, you don't know what trees we cut down. We had an arborist out there to make sure the trees we cut down were, in fact, detrimental to the health and safety of the traveling public and or the house. That's why those trees came down.
And also, we recognize the concerns of a lot of people.
And 99% of the people think it looks great.
The real estate interests, et cetera, people who have to drive by that house every day, see it as a blight situation and wanting it to be resolved and gotten rid of.
It looks 100% better already, just having it cleaned up.
Well, that's why I would say, in the interest of trying to accommodate the interests of all parties, the quicker we could get a meeting going and trying to move it to a solution, the
And
better.
I will see if they're willing to sit down, I mean, that's
Okay.
all we can do.
Yeah, I think it's kind of bringing the real situation to their attention, because they just see it as a house, right? It's just a.
I think they see it as a property that's more valuable without the house than it is with it.
Probably. But I think if we put it in context to them, maybe we have our legal counsel, at the meeting, and the HCC, and communicate to them what it means to the town.
And then the Historic District Commission can form a nonprofit, and maybe the bank will hand it over to you.
Well,
And
we'd
figure out
have to look at that, but.
All right, so at this stage, we'll wait to hear from the selectmen before our next meeting as to what you propose. And again, we'd be willing to throw our time and energy behind this as well, to try to move the project along.
We'll be talking to the bank either tomorrow, or not tomorrow, probably Friday or Monday, because now we have a workup of what the work we've done already has cost. And
Okay.
we've been in contact with them, letting, you know, they're interested in what's going on, and so we'll be letting them know what it's gonna cost, what it costs. It's about $9,000.
Okay, we'll wait to hear from the selectmen then.
Mhm.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right.